Kelvor Prime was one of the most beautiful worlds in the Galactic Alliance. Two suns painted its skies with gold and crimson light. The tall crystal towers of the capital city caught the sunlight and glowed like fire. Floating ships moved slowly above the skyline, their silver hulls shining against the endless sky. The streets below were filled with different alien species, each one moving with purpose, speaking in voices that sounded like music, growls, or whispers. Too many aliens here. Humans were still a mystery. They were newcomers to the Alliance, and most other races saw them as clever, but reckless. Some thought humans were brave, others thought they were foolish. Few believed they could make a difference in the larger galaxy. Captain Ilara Vance stood on a high balcony, looking at the city below. The warm wind lifted her dark hair, but her eyes stayed fixed on the horizon. She looked calm, but inside her mind, thoughts moved fast. She had received a message from Earth earlier, message marked urgent, but she had been ordered by the Alliance to ignore it. She hated ignoring warnings. A tall figure approached her from behind. It was Counselor Velis, a Kivari diplomat. His body was long and insect-like, with a shiny, shifting carapace that reflected the light in rainbow colors. His voice sounded like water flowing over stones. "Captain Vance, the council is ready for you. They are waiting in the chamber." Ilara gave a small nod and turned to follow. Her steps were steady, but her mind was already wondering what new problem the council had called her in for. The Grand Spire was the heart of Kelvor Prime's government. The council chamber was a huge round hall, made of white marble and glass. Above them, the ceiling was a clear dome that showed the planet's upper atmosphere. Strange auroras in green and blue danced slowly across the sky. The seats of the council formed a circle around the room, each one higher than the next. Every seat belonged to a different species. Some were tall and covered in feathers, some were short with scaled skin, and some looked almost like machines. At the very center of the chamber stood the High Speaker, an ancient Dralith with silver scales that shimmered softly. His voice carried across the hall with calm authority. "An anomaly has been detected in the rim sectors. Our long-range scanners reported disturbance in space, possibly gravitational in nature. Civilian colonies nearby are already being evacuated." The room grew noisy as different council members spoke at once. Some demanded more data, others argued it was nothing. A few whispered about danger. Counselor Velis raised a clawed hand. "The humans have ships in that sector. Perhaps they can be useful for observation and containment." The word useful stung, but Ilara stepped forward. "With respect, High Speaker, humanity has dealt with unpredictable dangers before. Give us the authority to investigate directly." A deep laugh echoed from the far side of the chamber. A massive Rish captain, his skin like black stone, leaned forward in his seat. "Humans always rush in with no thought. You will lose ships, and then call for rescue." Ilara's gaze didn't move from his. "Maybe, but sometimes rushing in is the only way to get answers before it's too late." The High Speaker's silver eyes rested on her for a long time. Then he spoke slowly. "Very well. You will take your fleet. But this is reconnaissance only, Captain Vance. Engage nothing. Do not provoke. Whatever this is." Later that night, the UTS Resolute, Ilara's flagship, floated high above Kelvor Prime. Its long, sharp frame gleamed under the planet's twin moons. On the bridge, crew members moved between glowing consoles. The quiet hum of the ship's systems was the only sound. Lieutenant Mason Hale, LRS second in command, walked quickly to her side. His face was tense. "Captain, you should see this." He handed her a data pad. The data was strange. The gravitational waves from the anomaly weren't random. They repeated in a steady rhythm, like a pulsar, a signal. Ilara's voice was low. "That's no natural event." Hale nodded. "It gets worse. If I read this right, the source is moving, and it's headed toward the core worlds of the Alliance. The bridge grew quiet. Ensign Tara Lang, the communications officer, glanced up from her console. If this thing reaches the core worlds, the Alliance won't have time to prepare. Ilara looked at the stars beyond the viewport. Each one shone cold and distant, but she felt the weight of what might be coming. If the Council thinks this is just observation, she said, they're wrong. We're not just watching this, we're standing in its path. No one on the bridge spoke after that. The crew understood. They had just been given a mission that might decide the future of more than just humanity. The engines came to life with a deep, rising thrum. Outside, the great ship turned slowly, leaving the safety of Kelver Prime's orbit. Its nose pointed toward the dark edges of space, where the anomaly waited. Somewhere out there, something unknown was moving toward them, and humanity was going to meet it first. The UTS Resolute cut through the black sea of space, leaving the bright twin suns of Kelver Prime far behind. The last Alliance relay station faded from view until it was only a small blinking dot. Beyond it, there was nothing but the deep and endless dark. Captain Ilara Vance stood at the center of the bridge, her eyes fixed on the main screen. Ahead, the anomaly grew larger with every passing second. It was not just empty space. It was a sphere of shifting darkness, a shadow that seemed to eat the starlight around it. Its edges bent and twisted, making the stars beyond appear to ripple like water. Lieutenant Mason Hale worked at his console, his fingers moving quickly across glowing controls. His face was pale in the soft light. Captain, we're getting life form readings from inside the perimeter. Ilara's eyes narrowed. Any identification? None, Hale replied. No known Alliance signatures. But there's something strange. The communications officer, Tara Lang, turned from her station. Her voice was uncertain. Captain, I'm reading high oxygen traces inside the anomaly. Ilara frowned. That doesn't make sense. This far from a habitable planet. Tara shook her head. It's not just high, it's dangerous for most life forms. The mix would be toxic to almost every species we know, except humans. The bridge went silent. The crew exchanged uneasy looks. This wasn't natural. Before anyone could speak, again, the ship's sensors blared a warning. The tactical officer, Ensign Rourke, shouted, "Contacts." 3 vessels emerging from the anomaly. On the screen, the darkness rippled and split apart. Out of it came 3 black ships, their surfaces alive with shifting, armor-like plates. They moved without any visible engines, gliding forward like predators in the deep. Hale's voice was low. They're fast. Too fast. A deep, distorted voice suddenly filled the bridge, translated into rough basic by the Resolute systems. Terran vessel, you should not be here. Leave this place, or be broken. Ilara straightened in her chair. This is Captain Vance, of the United Terran Fleet. Identify yourselves. There was a pause, then the voice returned, colder. We do not breathe your poisoned skies. We do not drink your corrosive seas. We will cleanse your stars of your kind. Hal gave her a sharp glance. If they can't handle our atmosphere. Ilara's mind was already moving ahead. Then we might have a weapon they can't see coming. The enemy ships moved in closer, forming a wide arc around the Resolute. Their movement was precise, like hunters closing on prey. Rourke's voice was tense. They're matching our speed, Captain. No sign they're arming weapons. Yet, they don't want to destroy us, Ilara said. They want to take us. She tapped her comm panel. Engineering, power to forward shields. Navigation, prepare evasive maneuvers. We're not letting them box us in. The Resolute banked, hard to starboard. The enemy adjusted instantly, shadowing their movement. Hale studied his readings. Their ships are of organic tech. I'm seeing heat pulses inside their hulls, almost like a heartbeat. Biotech warships, Eli murmured. And whatever they are, They've built those ships to stay far from oxygen-rich zones. For 20 minutes, the chase continued. The Resolute darted in and out of asteroid fields, but the black ships stayed close. Every time Elara tried to angle toward open space, they cut her off. Finally, Hale leaned close. "Captain, we can't outrun them here. But if we head for Earth," Elara finished the thought, "they'll have to follow us into the densest oxygen field in Alliance space." Tara looked over her shoulder. "If they try to board us there, they'll choke before they can take a step," Elara said firmly. She stood and addressed the crew. "Set course for Earth, maximum burn, and keep our pursuers close. If they want a prize, we'll give them one they can't hold." The Resolute's engines roared to full power. The ship shot forward, the stars streaking past in long white lines. Behind them, the 3 alien vessels kept pace, never falling back, never closing the gap. Elara stayed at the forward viewport, watching the black shapes in the distance. Somewhere inside those ships were living beings that saw humanity as a threat to be erased. She felt a sharp, cold resolve rise inside her. "Let them follow," she whispered to herself. "We'll see how long they last in our sky." Hours passed. The tension on the bridge never faded. The alien ships never once broke pursuit. In the quiet moments between sensor checks and navigation updates, the crew spoke in low voices. Some were afraid, some were angry, but none asked to turn back. In the crew lounge, Hale found Elara standing alone, looking out at the starfield. "You think the Council knew about them?" he asked quietly. Elara didn't look away from the S. The UTS Resolute raced through the black void, Earth growing larger ahead. From this distance, the planet was a glowing blue and white jewel, shining in the dark. Its oceans glittered under the sunlight, and thin clouds curled like white brushstrokes across its surface. On the bridge, Captain Elara Vance stood with her arms folded, watching the view. Behind them, 3 alien warships still followed in a perfect formation. They made no attempt to attack. They simply shadowed the Resolute, silent and patient, like predators waiting for the right moment to strike. Lieutenant Mason Hale checked the sensor readings again. "They're staying just far enough back to avoid our rear guns." "Smart," Elara gave a thin smile. "Let them be smart. They're following us exactly where we want them." The communications officer, Tara Lang, glanced up from her console. "Captain, Earth Command is hailing us. They're warning about unidentified ships in pursuit." "Patch them through," Elara ordered. The screen flickered, and Admiral Reyes appeared. His uniform was crisp, but his dark eyes were full of concern. "Captain Vance, those things tailing you, what are they?" "Unknown species," Elara replied. "Biotech ships, highly aggressive, and they can't survive in an oxygen-rich environment." The Admiral raised an eyebrow. "You're planning to use Earth's atmosphere as a weapon?" Elara nodded once. "If they want to take us, they'll have to breathe our air. I'm betting they can't." Reyes hesitated for a long moment, then gave a sharp nod. "Understood. We'll clear the upper atmosphere for your maneuver. But, Captain, don't fail. If they get past you, the planet won't be ready." As Earth grew closer, Elara ordered the crew to battle stations. Sirens pulsed through the ship, and the calm hum of the Resolute's systems turned into a deeper, sharper roar. On the lower decks, engineers checked coolant lines and weapon charges. In the crew quarters, Marines sealed their armor and checked their rifles. Hale joined Elara at the viewport. "You think they'll follow us all the way down?" "They've been chasing us for hours," she said. "If they wanted to give up, they would have done it by now. Whatever they're after, it's on this ship." Hale's eyes flicked toward her. "Or maybe it's us." The Resolute entered Earth's orbit, and the blue curve of the planet filled the screen. The alien ship slowed for only a moment before adjusting their course to follow. Tara's voice came sharp. "Captain, their hull temperature is rising. They're not built for this kind of entry. Ilara's tone was calm, but firm. Good. Let them burn. The ship began its controlled descent. The atmosphere hit them in a rush, thick, bright, and alive. Flames licked across the forward shields as friction fought against their speed. The alien ships came in close behind, their black hulls glowing orange under the heat. Hale studied the readings. They're trying to compensate with internal cooling, but it's not enough. Oxygen levels are already penetrating their outer layers. Ilara's eyes stayed locked on the screen. Hold steady. Let them think they can survive it. At 40,000 feet, the plan began. The Resolute's lower bay doors opened, and a cloud of compressed oxygen tanks, disguised as cargo, was released into the thin upper air. The tanks burst open, flooding the surrounding space with even higher oxygen concentration. The effect on the alien ships was immediate. Their formations broke. One ship veered hard to the side, its movements jerky. Another began to lose speed, trailing black smoke. Terra's voice was tight. "Captain, their hulls are reacting. The oxygen is eating through their outer layers, like acid." Ilara didn't allow herself to feel relief yet. "Bring us into the lower atmosphere. Pull them in after us." The clouds swallowed them whole. Inside the bridge, the sound of rushing wind and distant thunder echoed faintly through the hull. Rain streaked across the forward viewport as they passed through a storm front. Behind them, the surviving alien ships followed, but now their movements were uneven. Their black armor had begun to pale, blister, and peel away. Hale shook his head in disbelief. "It's like they're suffocating in slow motion." The first alien ship finally broke apart, tearing into flaming pieces that rained down into the ocean below. The second ship tried to pull up, climbing back toward space, but its hull split open mid-turn, spilling glowing fragments into the clouds. The last ship kept coming, damaged, but relentless. It pushed into the thicker air, its weapons powering up despite the strain. Ilara's voice was sharp. "Bring forward cannons online. Target engines." The Resolute's guns fired in bright flashes, tearing into the enemy's rear. The alien ship swayed, losing control, but still, it tried to close the gap. Its surface writhed like it was alive and in pain. Terra shouted, "Its oxygen levels are critical." One more minute, and the alien ship convulsed, then exploded into a blinding fireball, the shockwave rattling the Resolute's shields. The bridge was silent. Outside, Earth's blue sky stretched wide and calm, as if nothing had happened. Hale finally let out a long breath. It worked. They never stood a chance down here. Ilara didn't smile. She looked at the sky, then at the empty space where the alien ships had been. This was just the first wave. Whatever they are, they'll send more. And next time, they might find a way to survive our air. Her voice lowered, almost to herself. "We have to be ready before they come back." The rain was still falling over the Atlantic when the UTS Resolute returned to orbit. Earth lay below, peaceful and shining, as if the battle had never happened. But inside the ship, the crew moved in silence. The smell of burned metal and coolant lingered in the air, a reminder of how close they had come to being taken. Captain Ilara Vance stood at the forward viewport, her hands resting lightly on the railing. She should have felt relief. The enemy ships were gone, Earth was safe. But instead, her chest felt heavy. She knew this was not the end. A soft chime came from the comms console. Terra Leng spoke quietly. "Captain, the Galactic Council has called an emergency session. They want you there in person." Ilara nodded once. Set course for Kelvar Prime. The grand spire of Kelvar Prime was as bright as before, but the atmosphere in the council chamber was tense. Delegates from across the galaxy sat in there, high seats, voices overlapping in a storm of arguments. Holographic images of the battle flickered in the air, above them 3 black alien ships chasing the Resolute into Earth's atmosphere, then breaking apart in the oxygen-rich skies. The high speaker, silver-scaled and grave, struck his staff against the floor. Order. Let us hear the human report. Ilara stepped into the center of the circle. Her uniform was crisp, but her eyes carried the weight of the past days. 3 enemy vessels followed us from the rim sectors. They attempted to capture us. We used Earth's atmosphere against them. All 3 ships were destroyed. Harish. Captain leaned forward, his stone-like skin catching the light. You lured them to your homeworld. You risked the safety of an Alliance member world without permission. Ilara met his gaze. If they had reached the core worlds, every planet would have been at risk. We stopped them before they could vanish again. From the left side of the chamber, Counselor Velis of the Kavari clicked his mandibles. But you did not capture them. We have no samples, no prisoners, no data except sensor readings. The opportunity to learn more about this species is gone. Hale, standing just behind Ilara, muttered under his breath, "We got data that matters. We learned how to kill them." A feathered diplomat from the Avori spread her wings slightly. Perhaps we should not assume they are hostile. They may have been protecting their territory. Ilara's voice hardened. Their first words to us were a promise to cleanse the stars of our kind. That is not a misunderstanding. The chamber grew quiet. The high speaker studied her for a long time before speaking. And yet, Captain Vance, you must understand the Alliance cannot act on emotion. We must be sure before committing to war. Ilara held his gaze. Then you should know they will come again. And next time, they may find a way to survive. Our heir. After the session ended, Ilara walked alone through the crystal halls of the Grand Spire. Outside, the golden sunset painted the city in warm light, but she felt no warmth. Hale caught up to her. How bad was it in there? They don't want to believe this is a war, she said. They think if they stall, it might go away. Hale's voice was low, and if they're wrong, Ilara's answer was cold. Then whole worlds will burn while they argue. Back aboard the Resolute, the crew received new orders: patrol the rim sectors and gather intelligence, but avoid engagement. The order came directly from the Council. In the strategy room, Ilara stared at the star map. A faint, blinking signal marked the place where the anomaly had first been seen. Now, more blinking points were appearing, scattered across the rim. Terra entered quietly. Captain, we've been picking up the same gravitational pattern we detected before, not in one place, in 5, and they're all moving inward. Hale leaned over the table, frowning. 5 anomalies. That's not scouting. That's an invasion pattern. Ilara's jaw tightened. The Council won't move until they see proof. We'll just have to bring it to them. 3 days later, the Resolute was back at the edge of Alliance space. The darkness beyond the rim looked calm, but the crew had learned better than to trust calm skies. At the observation deck, Ilara stood with Hale and Terra, watching the stars. Hale broke the silence. You ever think about how strange it is that we're the only species that breathes air this deadly to them? Terra gave a faint smile. Strange. And maybe the UTS Resolute drifted at the edge of the rim. Lights dimmed. Engines running at minimum power. The stars stretched in every direction, bright and silent. But the crew knew the silence was only an illusion. Somewhere out there, the enemy moved in the dark. Captain Ilara Vance stood over the main holotable, studying the glowing map. Red points marked the locations of the 5 anomalies they had detected. One of them pulsed brighter than the rest closest to their current position. Lieutenant Mason Hale crossed his arms, his voice low. If we approach, we'll be on their sensors the moment we get close. They're not going to just let us watch. They don't have to let us, Ilara said. We just need a few minutes inside their perimeter. Long enough to scan one of their ships and transmit the data back to the Council. Terra Lang, standing by the comm station, frowned. And what if they try to take us like last time? Tone was calm. Then we make sure they regret it. Hours later, the Resolute slid forward through the dark. each movement slow and careful. The enemy's signal grew stronger. Visual contact. Rourke, the tactical officer, whispered dot on the screen. A black alien ship floated against the backdrop of stars. It was larger than the ones they had fought over Earthlong, curved, almost like the skeleton of some giant sea creature. Its surface shimmered faintly, alive with slow, pulsing lights. Around it, smaller shapes drifted like shadows, escorts, or perhaps living drones. Hale leaned toward the screen. There, feeding on something. The image zoomed in, revealing a small freighter trapped in the alien ship's grasp. The freighter's hull was torn open, its cargo spilling into space. Tiny escape pods drifted away, ignored by the black drones. The drones seemed focused on breaking down pieces of the ship, dragging the wreckage toward the main vessel. Tara's voice was tense. We can't just watch this. Ilara didn't take her eyes off the screen. We're here for proof. If we attack now, the Council will say we acted without evidence. Stay on course. The Resolute crept closer. The alien ship loomed large now, its hull covered in strange ridges that twitched and shifted, as if the vessel itself was alive and breathing. Scanning, Hale said quietly. The console hummed as the ship's sensors reached out. Hull composition, unknown. Energy readings are off the scale, and there's something else: internal life signs. Hundreds of them. Some are in containment fields. Ilara's brow furrowed. Prisoners. Looks that way, Hale said. Different species. Not just humans. Tara's voice sharpened. Captain, that's our proof. The Council can't ignore this. Not yet, Ilara replied. We need a full data sweep. Keep scanning. Then the warning alarms came to life. Rourke's head snapped up. They've seen us. Escorts are moving in fast. On the screen, 3 black drones broke from the larger ship, their movements smooth and deliberate. Their lights glowed brighter as they closed the distance. Full power to engines. He ordered, We're not here to fight, just keep them busy until the scan is complete. The Resolute surged forward, weaving between drifting wreckage as the drones gave chase. Beams of white energy slashed past the hull, but the crew held steady. Scans at 70%, Hale called out. Keep them on our tail, Ilara said. No sharp turns, they'll anticipate it. A sudden impact rocked the ship. Sparks burst from a panel near the helm, direct hit to the aft shields. Rourke shouted. Hale's hands flew over the controls. We can lose them in that debris field. No, Ilara cut in sharply. We need 90% scan completion before we run. The crew didn't argue. They knew what was at stake. The debris field ahead was a shattered asteroid belt, the rocks spinning slowly in the black. The Resolute darted between them, the drones close behind. The alien mothership grew smaller in the distance, but its presence was still heavy like a dark eye watching them. Hale's voice was tight. 85%. Almost there. One of the drones fired again. The shot grazed the hull, sending a shudder through the ship. 90%. Hale shouted. Punch it, Ilara ordered. The Resolute's engines roared to life. The ship tore through the asteroid belt, twisting between tumbling rocks. The drones followed, but one clipped. A stone the size of a building and vanished in a burst of black fire. The other 2 hesitated, then broke off, retreating back toward the mothership. When the chase ended, the crew sat in silence, breathing hard. Tara finally spoke. We have everything. Full scans, prisoner records, weapon specs. Enough to convince anyone this is a threat. Hale looked at Ilara. Do you think the Council will listen now? Ilara's eyes were cold. They'll have no choice. And when they do, we'll be ready to take the fight to them. As the Resolute turned for the long journey back to Kelver Prime, Ilara stood at the viewport, watching the dark where the mothership had been. Somewhere out there, the enemy was building more ships, taking more prisoners, and preparing for their next move. She whispered to herself, next time, we're not just watching. Next time, we end this. The ship slid into the black, carrying proof of the enemy's cruelty and the promise of a war that had only just begun. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council was a place built to impress. Its walls curved high, like the inside of a vast dome, glowing with soft blue light. Hundreds of seats spiraled upward in tiers, each one occupied by a representative from a different world. Some wore ceremonial robes, others shone with metallic skin or fur that shifted in the light. At the very center of the floor, the crew of the UTS Resolute stood in a single line. Captain L.R. Vance, Lieutenant Mason Hale, Communications Officer Tara Lang, and Tactical Officer Rourke. The air felt heavy. It wasn't Earth air. It was thin and cold, with a faint metallic taste that clung to the tongue. High above them, the council speaker, a towering crystalline being named Vethriel, struck the floor with its staff. The sound rang like a bell. Captain Vance, voice echoed, soft but sharp. You have returned with claims of a hostile fleet moving against the Alliance. We expect evidence. Alara stepped forward, her voice steady. You'll have more than claims, Speaker. You'll have the truth. Hale activated the holoprojector. The air shimmered, and images of the black alien mothership filled the space. Gasps rose from the seats as the vessel rotated in midair, its skeletal frame and shifting ridges clear for all to see. This, Hale said, is the vessel that attacked Earth and other worlds along the rim. They are not scavengers. They are organized. They are building more ships, and they are holding prisoners. Another image replaced the first sensor readings, heat maps, and containment fields holding dozens of life forms. The crowd grew restless. This, Tara said, stepping forward, is proof of their crimes. These readings show captives from 6 different species, including humans. Her voice tightened. We've heard the recordings. Some of them are still alive. A murmur swept the hall. A representative from the insectoid Chavanier clicked his mandibles. Why bring this here now, human? The rim is always dangerous. What makes this different from any pirate fleet? Ilara's eyes locked on him. Because pirates don't build ships the size of cities. Pirates don't target oxygen-rich worlds specifically. And pirates don't leave a trail of dead planets behind them. A ripple of unease moved through the chamber. Then, one of the larger council members and armored reptilian from Drakthor Primes. If what you say is true, we are facing a war. You understand the cost. Yes, Ilara said. And I also understand the cost of doing nothing. She turned her gaze to every representative in the room. You think humans are too new, too untested, to lead in this? I don't care. We've fought extinction before, with no one coming to save us. We will fight again if we must. But if we fight together, we can stop them before they come for your worlds. For a long moment, the hall was silent. Then slowly, the speaker spoke. The council will vote. Light rippled across the dome as hundreds of small orbs hovered over the seats, turning blue for support, red for denial. At first, the mix was even, but then, one by one, the blue lights began to outnumber the red. The vote was decided. The council recognizes the threat, Vethriel declared. A joint strike force will be assembled. Captain Vance, your crew will be given command of one of the task groups. Outside the hall, the crew walked in silence for a while. Hale finally broke it. We did it. They actually listened. They listened because we showed them what's coming, Ilara said. But don't mistake this for victory. Now the real fight begins. Tara's voice was soft. And if the enemy learns we're coming. Ilara glanced at her. Then we'll just have to surprise them first. 2 days later, the UTS Resolute docked at a massive orbital shipyard above Kelver Prime. The place was alive with activity-sleek Alliance warships floating in perfect lines. Drones, welding armor plates, cargo pods shuttling back and forth. For the first time, the humans saw the full scale of the Alliance's military strength. Rourke let out a low whistle. That's a lot of firepower. Think it'll be enough? It has to be, Alara said. In the central briefing room, holographic displays showed the enemy's territory, a jagged stretch of space along the rim marked in red. The Joint Strike Force would hit 3 locations at once: a shipyard, a supply depot, and what they believed to be the enemy's main base of operations. The Resolute was assigned to the shipyard assault. It would be dangerous, more dangerous than anything they'd faced before, but taking out the shipyard could cripple the enemy's expansion. That night, Elara stood alone at the moment the fleet arrived. The stars disappeared under the shadow of the enemy shipyard. It was massive black, twisted metal spanning the remains of a shattered moon. Huge skeletal arms reached out into space, holding half-built warships, like prey in a spider's web. A swarm of smaller enemy ships buzzed around it, their hulls glinting like sharp teeth. The cum burst with noise. All ships, this is Fleet Command. Engage, at will. Strike Force Alpha, target the shipyard's main stabilizers. Beta, cut down the fighter screen. Gamma, with me on the heavy guns. On the UTS Resolute, Captain Elara Vance stood at the center of the bridge. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned with focus. Helm, bring us in on Vector 6. Tactical, target the fighter clusters. Comes, coordinate with the Kelver cruisers. Hale's hands flew over the controls. Aye, Captain. Coming in hot. The first wave hit them almost instantly. Sleek, needle-like enemy interceptors shot across the void, firing streams of bright plasma. The Resolute shook under the impact. Alarms flashing red. Rourke barked over the noise. Shields holding at 80%, firing main guns. The ship's cannons lit up, sending streaks of golden light tearing through the blackness. One enemy fighter exploded in a flare of fire and debris. Another spiraled away, trailing smoke. But more came. Dozens. All ships, watch your flanks. Terra shouted into the comms. They're trying to cut us off from the fleet. Elara made the call instantly. Full thrust forward. Break there. Line before they close the trap. The Resolute surged ahead, weaving through the chaos. Alliance ships fought on every side. A Kelver frigate took a direct hit and spun out of formation, trailing sparks. A Drakthar cruiser rammed an enemy corvette head-on, tearing it in half. The void was a storm of light, fire, and shattered metal. Then came the voice on the cum-cold alien and mechanical. You will not take this place. Your worlds will. Bernhale frowned. That's coming from the shipyard itself. Patch it through to me, Elara ordered. The channel opened, and she spoke into the mic. This is Captain Elara Vance of the United Terran ship Resolute. You're holding prisoners. Release them and surrender the shipyard, or we'll tear it apart. The alien voice hissed, almost amused. You cannot breathe our air. We cannot breathe yours. But in the cold between stars, we are equals, and here, you will die. The words barely faded before the shipyard's massive guns came to life. Bright beams of energy cut through the void, slicing an Alliance frigate in two. The shockwave slammed into the Resolute, rattling the bridge. Rourke gritted his teeth. Captain, those guns will wipe us out in minutes. Elara's gaze locked on the holographic map. Not if we cut their power. She pointed to a section, deep inside the shipyard's frame. That's their reactor hub. We can't hit it from here. We'll have to send a boarding team. A hush fell over the bridge. Hale broke it. That's suicide. Maybe, Elara said, but it's our best chance. She looked at Rourke, prepped the boarding shuttle. Within minutes, the plan was in motion. Rourke would lead a small squad into the shipyard, while the Resolute and the rest of the fleet kept the enemy busy. If they destroyed the reactor hub, the shipyard would lose power, and the fleet could finish it. The shuttle launched under heavy fire, weaving through the swarm of enemy fighters. Rourke sat at the front, armored and armed, eyes fixed on the growing shape of the shipyard's skeletal frame. Inside the shuttle, the squad sat in tense silence. One soldier muttered a quiet prayer. Another checked her rifle for the third time. Rourke didn't speak. He just thought of earth blue skies, green forest sand of the prisoners trapped somewhere ahead. The shuttle slammed into the shipyard's docking bay, metal screeching as the doors blew open. The squad rushed out, weapons ready. The air inside was wrong thick, sharp, and burning in the lungs. The aliens had made the station's atmosphere unbreathable for most species. The humans wore full helmets, their oxygen supply ticking down with every step. Figures moved in the shadows, tall, insect-like soldiers with armored carapaces and glowing eyes. They struck fast, claws scraping against the squad's armor. Blaster fire filled the bay, echoing off the walls. One by one, the enemy fell, but the humans kept moving. Time was running out. Back in space, the Resolute fought like a cornered animal. Hale pushed the engines to their limits, dodging incoming fire. Terra relayed enemy positions to the fleet. Elara stood at the center, giving orders with sharp precision. A Kelvar cruiser moved in beside them, shielding the Resolute from a barrage meant to tear it apart. The two ships surged forward together, clearing a path for the boarding team. Inside the shipyard, Rourke's squad reached the reactor hub. It was a massive chamber, the walls pulsing with green light. Thick conduits ran from the core to every part of the station. Rourke planted the charges, his voice steady over comms. Explosives, set, 2 minutes. But the alien voice returned louder, now, echoing through the metal. You think you can destroy what we have built. You think we fear you. Rourke looked straight at the glowing core. You should. He hit the detonator. The explosion was blinding. The reactor erupted, sending shockwaves through the entire station. Lights went out. Weapons fell silent. From the Resolute's bridge, Elara saw the glow fade across the shipyard's frame. That's our cue. All ships, hit them with everything you've got. The Alliance fleet poured fire into the now defenseless shipyard. Enemy vessels scattered, some fleeing, others destroyed in the blast. Within minutes, the massive structure began to break apart, drifting into the void. In the shuttle, Rourke and his squad were thrown against the walls as the blast ripped through the docking bay. They barely made it out, the shuttle spinning into open space before stabilizing. When they rejoined the fleet, the sight that met them was breathtaking. The broken moon's shadow now scattered with glowing wreckage. The enemy shipyard reduced to floating debris. On the Resolute's bridge, the crew watched the last pieces of the station drift away. Hale let out a long breath. We actually did it. Elara didn't smile. Her eyes stayed fixed on the stars ahead. One battle doesn't win a war. They'll come back, stronger. Terra glanced at her. And what will we do then? Voice was calm, but her words were steel. We'll be ready. The enemy shipyard had been destroyed, and the Alliance fleet limped away through the dark. Some ships had lost entire sections of their hulls. Others drifted with half-dead engines. The UTS Resolute had survived, but the scars were deep scorch marks along the armor. A wounded crew, and fuel reserves running dangerously low. Yet, for a brief moment, there was silence. Captain Elara Vance stood alone on the viewing deck, watching. The shattered remains of the moon drift like ash in the void. Her reflection in the glass looked older than she remembered. The war had stolen months of sleep, stolen too many lives. She thought of the prisoners they had rescued, weak, frightened, and barely able to stand. She thought of Rourke's squad, returning with fewer soldiers than they had left with. The war was far from over. 3 days later, during repairs at a forward station, the first reports came in. It started as scattered signals from the Terran outer colony's broken transmissions, bursts of static, and half-heard warnings. Then came the images. Whole cities were burning. The enemy had struck, not at the front lines, but deep inside human space. Civilian worlds, with little to no defense. The air was filled with black smoke and the crack of collapsing steel. People were running, screaming. The aliens weren't attacking to capture, they were erasing. On the Resolute's bridge, the crew watched the footage in stunned silence. They're hitting non-military targets, Hale said, his voice tight. Tara shook her head in disbelief. This isn't a raid. This is a message. Halara's jaw tightened. And I know exactly who they're sending it to. Rourke stepped forward. Earth. Hours later. The official confirmation came from Alliance Command. The enemy was moving a massive fleet toward the Sol system. The scale of the force was beyond anything the humans had faced before. At least 20 capital ships, escorted by hundreds of smaller vessels. It was clear what they intended: strike Earth hard enough to break human morale and force. Surrender. Alara didn't wait for orders. Set course for Sol. We'll intercept them before they reach orbit. The journey was tense. Every crew member knew what was at stake. The thought of Earth, the blue oceans, the forests, the crowded cities. The families was heavy in every heart. In the mess hall, no one laughed. No one played cards. The only sound was the quiet hum of the engines. Tara found Hale staring at a small holophoto on his wrist device. A young girl smiled up at him. Your sister? Tara asked softly. Hale nodded. She's 16. Lives in New York. She's never even seen war. If they reach Earth. His voice broke, but he didn't finish. Tara didn't speak. She just put a hand on his shoulder. When the Resolute arrived in Sol's outer rim, the enemy was already there. Their fleet emerged from the black like a wall of jagged metal, blocking the path to Earth. They were arranged in perfect formation. A living blade aimed at humanity's homeworld. The comm channel opened. The same alien voice from the shipyard echoed across the bridge. Terrans, your skies will burn. Your seas will boil. Your children will gasp for air that does not exist. Ilara's reply was sharp. You'll have to get through us first. The battle began. The first exchange of fire lit up the void like lightning. The Resolute dived between two enemy destroyers, its cannons roaring. Hale twisted the ship into tight rolls,